Good morning, Girl Scouts. So this is TicTok here, and I'm here to show you about keeping your dishes clean at camp. Please make sure your mom and dad see this video so we know that they know that you're not going to get botulism when you come to camp, because we will get your dishes clean. So the things that you need to do dishes at camp include buckets. So I like to use 4, but Girl Scouts officially uses a 3-bucket system. We do wash, rinse, sanitize, and then this is just my catch-all for where I put my clean dishes after they've soaked and sanitized. The first 2 buckets are hot, so the first one will have hot soapy water, the second one is just hot rinse water, the third one is cold water with a little tiny bit of bleach or a sanitizing tablet. Your hot buckets need to be metal. So if, like for me today, I just grabbed whatever buckets I have at the house. I have 1 metal one and 2 plastic ones. So you're going to use your metal bucket to heat the water. And usually if you're cooking out at camp, the first thing you want to do as soon as you've got your meal cooked and you still have hot coals is go ahead and put your bucket onto the stove to get it going, or your fire, or whatever source. The bucket will get covered in carbon if you don't put something on the outside of it. So the first thing that you're going to do is soap the bucket, is what we call it. So your 2 hot buckets, if you're using 2 metal buckets, you're going to soap them. So I use Dawn dishwashing soap. It's one of my 11 essentials because Dawn removes grease from everything, and it's also good to wash your body with if you get poison ivy. So what you do is you're just going to take your 1 washcloth that you brought for doing dishes. There's no need to use a paper towel. Just use the one that you went ahead and set aside for dishes, and put a few drops of Dawn on the outside of your washcloth. And you've already got your bucket of water that's cool, and you're just going to go around the entire outside and underside of the bucket and get a layer of soap on it. And then when it comes time for camp to be over at the end of your weekend or whatever, you should be able to wash off all the carbon deposits and not have a gross bucket going back in your car for the way home. So once you've soaked your bucket, we're going to put this on the fire and let it heat up until the water is steamy. And you're going to do the same one for your rinse water bucket. So in this case today, I would fill up one, pour it into my rinse water, and then I'd fill up another one and go put it back on the stove. Okay, so we're going to pretend like the water's been heated up. One note about this is that you don't need to fill your buckets all the way to the top. It takes a lot longer to heat them up, and you really don't need that much dishwater. Also, because we use leave no trace camping principles, we really don't want to be pouring a whole lot of contaminated water out into the environment. So once your water's hot, so we've got hot, hot, cold, we're going to put just a few drops of your dishwashing liquid into the water. There's no need to try and make it like a bubble bath. You just need enough to get the grease off of your plate. If you do choose to use a biodegradable soap, that's fine too, but it won't work for soaping the outside of your buckets. So I just use Dawn for everything and just use a minimal amount. So this is a time whenever leaders and parents watch your girls and show them that just 1 or 2 drops of the soap is enough to get your dishes clean. Okay, so we've got our wash water ready, hot wash water. This is just rinse water, and the same thing goes for your cold sanitizing water. A lot of times people will bring their Clorox or their sanitizing tablets and just dump a whole lot in. You need 1 cap per gallon is all you need. Again, we're trying to take care of the environment, and we don't want to be Cloroxing the entire earth because we are going to be dumping this water. So I think I have a little more than a gallon. So just a couple of capfuls is good. One thing to note, I know whenever we try and pack, we try and like compact things and stuff like that. Sometimes we pour stuff into alternate bottles to make packing easier. You need to leave your bleach into the original container, or it needs to stay in a container that's marked bleach, because we don't want somebody accidentally picking up the container and thinking it's water and drinking it. Okay, so now we have our water ready. Again, I'm going to go over it. Wash, rinse, sanitize, warm, warm, cold. You're going to want to start by scraping off your dirty dishes. So I always bring a spatula and a dirty dish, and we have our trash bags hanging up on a tree or someplace like that that gets taken out every single night at camp. You're going to start with the cleanest dish possible. So bring a scraper with you, and you're just going to go to your imaginary trash bag, scrape it in. You really want nothing left on the plate. Also, like if you've had something really good, licking the plate is acceptable because we're at camp. So just start with a clean dish, okay? Some people also, to try and save trash space or anything like that, they might put a little bit of their wash water in here and scoop it around just to get ready, and that's fine too. So when you're doing your dishes, you want to do them in the order of cleanest to dirtiest. So you're going to start with your plates and cups and then save your pots and pans for the very last, for the person who has the chore of doing the dishes for the entire patrol or unit. Okay, so now we've done all the dishes. The girls either have picked up all their dishes and put them in the dunk bags and they're hanging up, or they're in what's my fourth bucket. It could be your air dryer, or some people bring a rack, whatever. But now we're left with a few things that still need to be cleaned up. We use leave no trace camping principles, so we don't just dump soapy and bleachy water just under a tree, because that would put chemicals at too much of a concentration under the tree. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get rid of our soapy water, but it's probably got some gross food stuff in there. So you have two choices. You need to strain it so that the gross food particles from the bottom don't get scattered out on the land and then animals eat it, and now they're getting the chemicals into, they're becoming dependent on food that people fed them. So both of those things are no's. If you're like me today, I don't have enough leaves to make a leaf bag, but I'm going to tell you about making a leaf bag. So if I had enough leaves or dry plant material where I could put them in a trash bag, what you would do is hang this from a tree, fill it just partially full with leaves, and then hang it from the tree, so you literally have a bag full of leaves hanging here. I would just poke a couple of holes in the bottom, and then I would use my empty bucket underneath it to strain into, and I'm using it as a strainer. I'm going to strain my wash water into the leaf bag. But because I don't have enough plant material today, what I'm going to do is actually use a strainer. So what I'm going to do is take my wash water and strain it into the rinse water. And again, the preferred way would be to use the leaf bag, but because I don't have enough plant materials today, I'm using a strainer. It's always good. Most people keep one in their camp kitchen anyway. So now I have a bucket that's still kind of gross. I mean, it still has some germs in it, but I've taken out all of the food materials from it so that now I can clean my buckets. So this is going to get set aside. You always have a couple of things that just come home a little bit weird. This will be wiped out later, and I'll do as much of it as I can now. But now I have water that is still warm that needs to be taken out. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean my first bucket a little bit, swish it around, get all of the gross things out. And then I'll end up flipping this one upside down in a minute and putting it back over the fire to dry. So now we need to get rid of our wastewater. So as you can tell, today I'm broadcasting from Lake El Reno, and you can't just dump water by a natural water source. So what I need to do is go at least 200 feet away from a water source and broadcast the water across a broad area. Instead of just pouring it under a tree, the best thing to do is sort of disseminate the chemicals in the water and spread it out. Okay, so now I've walked 200 feet away, and I have spread my wash and rinse water out across a broad area, and what I have left is my bucket full of sanitizing water that has a couple of caps of Clorox in it. So before I spread it out, what I'm going to do is clean my rinse bucket, swish it around, and now what I'm actually doing is sanitizing my rinse bucket by doing this. Then it goes into the wash bucket, swish it around, then everything goes back into my Clorox bucket. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go walk 200 feet away from the water source. I forgot to mention, if I'm at a camp, like a public park or whatever, sometimes they have water spigots that have a drain to the city sewer system. That's your first choice. The second choice is to broadcast your water across a broad area more than 200 feet away from the water source. I know that carrying a bucket full of water isn't super fun, but just know that you might be killing a tree if you dump it underneath the tree directly. So do it for the trees, walk 200 feet. Okay, so now we've done all our dishes. The dishes have all been tucked away nicely in their little dunk bags. They're hanging on the line. And I've cleaned out my party bucket, so there's nothing left in it except for a few leaves that have fallen in. So we've sanitized our buckets. So I went through, I dumped the wash water. I either used the leaf bag, which was our first choice, or I used the sieve, which is our second choice, to make sure that the food particles don't get spread across the land. And then we took our water sources and I dumped the wash water into the rinse water to make sure that the rinse water got just kind of cleaned out a little tiny bit. And then I went 200 feet away from a water source and I broadcast the water across a wide area so that I'm not concentrating chemicals. Same thing for the other two after I sanitized the buckets with the Clorox water. At this point, we just have wet buckets left to go. So the metal buckets go upside down on top of your fire so that they can dry out, and they'll stay there for the weekend. And then if you did bring plastic buckets like me today, then you're gonna need to find a place to store them upside down for a while so that the water that's sanitized can be drained out. When you get ready to go home, everything gets stacked into itself, back into the party bucket, and this I'll actually end up taking home and doing one final wash in the dishwasher with it when I'm all said and done for the week. Your Clorox and your Dawn go back into the camp kitchen, and make sure the lids are on tight and the Clorox stays into a marked bottle to make sure that nobody gets poisoned. And I think that's it. So now you know that when you come to camp, you can actually get sanitized dishes. We're using our Leave No Trace camping principles to make sure that we don't damage the land with food that's been scattered out and left for animals, and also that we broadcast chemicals as far as possible and away from a water source so that we don't damage the environment. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you guys later. Have a good rest of your camping weekend.